Welcome to Agriculture Vidya. Myself, Dr. A.N. Kumari. Today, I would like to present 50 important objective type bits on fundamentals of economics or fundamentals of agricultural economics. Course number is ECO 141. In agriculture BSc first year, this course will come. I have already released two parts. This is the third part. In two parts, 100 bits I covered. I am releasing 50 more bits in this part. When, as a result of change in the price, the quantity demanded increases or decreases, is called extension or contraction of demand. As a result of change in the price, the quantity demanded increases or decreases, is called extension or contraction of demand. In case of movement along the demand curve not changed or remains unchanged. In case of movement along the demand curve remains unchanged, not changed. Shifts in the demand curve. Shifts in the demand curve are due to demand determinants other than price changes. Shifts in the demand curve is due to demand determinants other than price changes. Demand determinants means change in the price of other related goods, change in the income level. Dash measures the responsiveness of quantity demanded to change in any one of the above factors by keeping other factors constant. That is elasticity of demand. That means ratio between quantity demanded to change in one factor to change by keeping other factors constant. Suppose change in the one factor means change in the price factor means we have to keeping the other factors, that is change in the income and change in the price of other related goods are constant. Suppose one factor is change in the income means two factors are change in the price and change in the price of other related goods, like that. Dash is the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded of a good to change its price, that is price elasticity of demand. Responsiveness of the quantity demanded to change in its price. Proportionate dash is the proportionate change in the quantity demanded to proportionate change in the price, that is perfect price elasticity of demand, that is price elasticity of demand. Proportionate change in the quantity demanded to proportionate change in the price. Responsiveness of quantity demanded to change in the income level is income elasticity of demand. Responsiveness or sensitiveness of quantity demanded to change in the income level is called income elasticity of demand. That is nothing but the percentage change in the quantity demanded by percentage change in the income. That is ratio between proportionate or percentage change in the quantity demanded to proportionate change in the income or percentage change in the income. That is income elasticity of demand. Dash is measuring the responsiveness of quantity demanded of a good to change in price of related goods. That is cross elasticity of demand. Responsiveness of quantity demanded of a good to change in the price of related goods. That is cross elasticity demand. That is sorry, dash is the percentage change in the demand of one good percentage to percentage change in the price of another good. That is ratio between proportionate or percentage change in the quantity demanded to proportionate or percentage change in the price of another good. That is cross elasticity of demand. Five types of degrees of price elasticity of demands are there. Five types of degrees of price elasticity of demand are there. When the quantity demanded of a good does not change at all to whatever change in the price, the demand is said to be perfectly inelastic. Whatever change in the price, that may be 50% or 100% change in the price level, leads to no change in the quantity demanded, that is 0% change in the quantity demanded. Whatever change in the price level leads to 0% or nil percentage change in the quantity demanded is known as perfectly inelastic. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, ed value is equals to 0. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, ed value is 0. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, demand curve is vertical line, vertical to x-axis or vertical line. In case of perfectly inelastic demand, the demand curve is vertical line or vertical to x-axis. In case of perfectly elastic demand, in case of perfectly elastic demand, quantity demanded is extremely infinitive responsive to price. That means even small minute percentage change in the price leads to infinitive percentage change in the quantity demanded is perfectly elastic demand. That means minute means 0.2 percentage, 0.1 percentage change in the price leads to 100 percentage change. That is very much change, infinitive change in the quantity demanded. That is perfectly elastic demand. In case of perfectly elastic demand, ED value is infinity. In case of perfectly elastic demand, ED value is infinity. The demand curve is horizontal to x-axis. In case of perfectly elastic demand, the demand curve is horizontal to x-axis. In case of perfectly elastic demand, when quantity demanded of a good change by exactly the same percentage as price, the demand is said to be unitary elastic. That means some percentage change in the price level leads to some percentage exactly same percentage change in the quantity demanded. Suppose 20 percentage change in the price level leads to 20 percentage change in the quantity demanded, or 40 percentage change in the price leads to 40 percentage change in the quantity demanded. That demand is said to be unitary elastic. In case of unitary elastic demand, ED value is 0. In case of unitary elastic demand, ED value is 1. In case of unitary elastic demand, ED value is 1. If a given proportionate change in the price causes relatively a greater proportionate change in quantity demanded of a good, the demand is said to be relatively elastic. That means lower percentage change in the price level leads to greater or higher percentage change in the quantity demanded. Lower percentage or less percentage change in the price leads to greater or higher percentage change in the quantity demanded is known as relatively elastic. In case of relatively elastic, the EDU value is greater than 1. In case of relatively elastic demand, EDU value is greater than 1. The demand curve is flatter slope. The demand curve is flatter slope in case of relatively elastic demand. When a given proportionate change in price causes a relatively less proportionate change in quantity demand, demand is said to be relatively inelastic. That means much percentage, greater percentage change in the price level leads to lower or lesser percentage change in the quantity demanded is said to be relatively inelastic. Much or greater percentage change in the price level leads to lower or lesser percentage change in the quantity demanded is said to be relatively inelastic. In case of relatively inelastic demand, ED value is less than 1. In case of relatively inelastic demand, ED value is less than 1. The demand curve is steeply sloped. In case of relatively inelastic demand, the demand curve is steeply sloped. In case of relatively inelastic demand, the demand curve is steeply sloped. Dash is the amount of commodity that sellers are able and willing to offer for sale at different prices per unit of time. That is supply. Supply. That is the sellers are willing to offer for sale. The sellers are willing to offer for sale at different prices per unit of time. The sellers are able or willing to offer for sale at different prices per unit of time is known as supply. In case of perishables, supply and stock are same. In case of perishable, supply and stock are same. In case of non-perishable, supply and stock are different. Perishables means within the short time they will spoil. So we have to supply all the produce. We did not kept as stock. We did not kept as stock. Dash will be the sum of the goods supplied at various price levels, all other things being remaining same. That is market supply. Market supply means sum of all goods supplied or summation of all individual supplies. Summation of all individual supplies comes under market supply. Dash is the defined as responsiveness of supply to res- changes in the price of the good. That is elasticity of supply. Elasticity of demand means responsiveness of the quantity demanded to change in the price of the good, whereas elasticity of supply means responsiveness or sensitiveness of the supply to the changes in the price of the good. There are 5 degrees of price elasticity of the supplies are there. There are 5 degrees of price elasticity of the supplies are there. When quantity supplied does not change whatever change in the price level, then the supply is said to be perfectly inelastic. Whatever change in the price level, that may be 0% or 100%, quantity supplied does not change. There is no change in the quantity supplied. Quantity supplied is remains constant. That is known as perfectly inelastic supply. In case of perfectly inelastic supply, elasticity of the supply ES value is 0. In case of perfectly inelastic supply, the ES value, elasticity of the supply value is 0. The supply curve is vertical line. In case of the perfectly inelastic supply, the supply curve is vertical line. In case of perfectly inelastic supply, the supply curve is vertical line. In case of perfectly elastic supply, the quantity supplied is extremely responsive to price. Even small percentage, that is 0.2 or 0.3 percentage change in the price leads to much percentage, infinitive percentage change in the quantity supplied. Small means 0 to, that is 0.2, minute percentage change in the price level leads to much percentage change in the quantity supplied, that is infinitive change in the quantity supplied, that is perfectly elastic supply. In case of the perfectly elastic supply, elasticity of the supply value is infinitive. In case of perfectly elastic supply, the AS value is infinitive. The supply curve is horizontal to x-axis. The supply curve is horizontal to x-axis. That is in the case of perfectly elastic supply. When quantity supplied of a good change by exactly the same percentage as price, the supply is said to be unitary or unit elastic. That means some percentage change in the price level leads to same or exact percentage change in the quantity supplied. That means 20 percentage change in the price level leads to 20 percentage change in the quantity supplied, or 40 percent change in the price level leads to 40 percentage change in the quantity supplied. That is known as unitary or unit elastic. In case of unitary elastic supply, ES value is 1. In case of unitary elastic supply, the ES value, elasticity of the supply value is 1. If a given proportionate change in the price causes relatively greater proportionate change in quantity supplied of good, the supply is said to be relatively elastic or elastic. Relatively elastic or elastic supply. That means smaller percentage or lower percentage change in the price level leads to greater percentage or higher percentage change in the quantity supplied. That means 10 percentage change in the price level leads to 40 or 50% a change in the quantity supplied. Then that supply is said to be relatively elastic or elastic supply. In case of relatively elastic supply, the ES value is greater than 1. In case of relatively elastic supply, the elasticity of the supply ES value is greater than 1. The supply curve is flatter slope. The supply curve is flatter slope in case of relatively elastic or elastic supply. In case of relatively elastic or elastic supply, the supply curve is flatter slope. The supply curve is flatter slope. When a given proportionate change in the price causes relatively less proportionate change in quantity supply, supply is said to be relatively inelastic or inelastic. That means much or greater percentage change in the price level leads to lower or lesser percentage change in the quantity supplied. That supply is said to be relatively inelastic or inelastic. That means 40% or 50% change in the price level leads to 10% or 5% change in the quantity supplied. That supply is said to be relatively inelastic or inelastic supply. In case of relatively inelastic supply, the elasticity supply value is less than 1. In case of relatively inelastic supply, the elasticity of the supply value is less than 1. ES value is less than 1. The supply curve is steeply sloped. The supply curve is steeply sloped in case of relatively inelastic or inelastic supply. Supply curve is steeply sloped in case of relatively inelastic or inelastic supply. The supply curve is dashed to the origin, concave to the origin. The supply curve is the slope of the supply curve is dashed to the origin, concave to the origin. The slope of the supply curve is dashed to the origin, concave to the origin. More supply at high price refers to extension of supply. More supply at a high price leads to extension of refers to extension of supply. Less supply at less price refers to contraction of supply. Less supply at less price refers to contraction of supply. More supply at same price leads to increase in supply. More supply at same price leads to increase in supply. Less supply at same price leads to decrease in supply. Less supply at same price refers to decrease in supply. Same quantity supplied at a lower price refers to decrease in supply. Same quantity supplied at lower price refers to decrease in supply. Thank you. If you like this video, please share and subscribe. Don't forget to comment also. Thank you.